1984 is George Orwell's last book, but it changed dystopian fiction for years to come. It is George Orwell's, and I quote, last warning to the world. Let's take a deeper look at this masterpiece.
Would have been better if I had not been under the influence of TB when I wrote it.
Actually named Eric Arthur Blair, George was born in India on June 25th, 1903. He was born from a British civil servant and was soon moved to Britain after his birth. He moved there with his sister Marjorie and his mother. His father stayed behind. He barely visited George as a kid, which had a big effect on their bond. George was constantly sick and battled the flu and bronchitis, which would be an ongoing problem in his childhood. But when he was at the age of 4, he wrote his first poem. And when he was 11, he published his first work to the local newspaper. It is his first literary success, the first success of many. At first, George struggled with his writing career. He had many jobs that he had to balance and was often distracted from his work. His first major work, named Down and Out in Paris and London, was about the lives of the working poor living in a transient existence. A book that does need to be quoted as a big part of George's career is Animal Farm. It is a very political book that took a bash at the Soviet Union and the two pigs being Joseph Stalin and Leon Trotsky. George's books were often political and had a satire sense of humor. But his most popular book and masterpiece, 1984, is the main focus of his career. 1984's basic story follows Winston, who lives in a dystopian society ruled by INGSOC, a political party. In this world, he lives where he can't think for himself, can't live for himself, and can't do anything for himself. He's a machine that lives by the rules of INGSOC, but Winston knows what he's doing and that he can't do anything to help himself or help the others around him. Because if he does that, he could be vaporized, a fate worse than death. Julia is another character. She's initially hated by Winston, but then later becomes Winston's love interest. They end up learning more about each other and more about the rules that they have to follow. They both work inside the same ministry, the Ministry of Truth, where their job is to rewrite history to make people forget the past. Julia gives a note to Winston saying, "I love you," on it. Since then, the two have met and learned more about each other and more about their society. Being vaporized happens to those who seem to pose a big threat on the INGSOC party. Winston knows people who are vaporized, but he can't do anything but ignore them, because the mention of that person's name could get you vaporized as well. To be vaporized means to be treated as if you were never alive in the first place. It is bad to die, but it is a tragedy to be vaporized. There are a few slogans inside the book with deep meanings. Ignorance is strength. Freedom is slavery. War is peace. War is peace means the INGSOC party engages in war to keep peace inside the country. Freedom is slavery means if you were to be free, you would be a slave to goods and other worldly indulgences. Ignorance is strength means if you ignore things, then you will become mentally powerful. These slogans are described as doublethink, or contradictory phrases. When thinking back to the actual year of 1984, it was mostly electronic music, high-waisted jeans, and dancing. and was nothing like the book 1984 at all. Quite the opposite. When people read the book, they were first worried. Was this book going to become our new society in 1984? Are we going to be ruled by a vile political party? Was this goodbye to the world that we once lived in free? But in my opinion, the year of the book had nothing to do with when this was going to happen. From the book 1984, there have been many statements that have come true in a few years. For example, the Telescreen uses facial recognition to identify certain people. An iPhone came out with facial recognition a few years back. Also, a popular app named FaceApp lets you change your face in wacky ways. But FaceApp has also tracked thousands and thousands of people by their face. Another example is Newspeak, a language that lets people change words to make them easier to pronounce and easier to understand. People use phrases like LOL or OMG could be examples of Newspeak coming to life. For all we know, 1984 could have been named 2020, and this nightmare could have come true.